It started as just another patrol. A clear morning in Yellowstone, quiet trails, perfect visibility. Ranger Thomas Collins checked in at 9:47 a.m. from the Northridge checkpoint. His voice over the radio was calm, routine. Then, 30 minutes later, the line went dead. Search teams found his truck still running, headlights on, the driver's door wide open. His ranger hat lay in the mud beside a single boot print that ended halfway down the trail. No struggle, no blood, no trace of where he went. It's as if the forest swallowed him whole. And here's the part nobody outside the service was supposed to know. Collins wasn't the first. In the past decade, dozens of hikers and even park staff have disappeared under the same strange circumstances. No tracks, no calls for help, no good explanation. But last year, a classified ranger's report surfaced, one that connects these disappearances in ways officials still refuse to acknowledge. So, what's really happening out there? Who or what is hunting hikers in our national parks? Every year, over 300 people vanish inside the U.S. National Park System. Some are recovered days later, disoriented, dehydrated, no memory of what happened, but a growing number are never found. The official explanations vary: mountain lions, exposure, falls, hypothermia. But when you start mapping where and how these disappearances occur, the patterns don't add up. Same park zones, same weather conditions, same eerie radio silence right before contact is lost. Recently, an anonymous ranger leaked a restricted report, a file said to connect these missing person cases across multiple parks. The data inside paints a picture that's not just alarming, it's something the public was never meant to see. This is the story of that file, and the question nobody wants to answer. Who's hunting hikers in our national parks? Her name was Emma Hart, 29 years old, wildlife photographer, avid hiker, the kind of person who felt safer under a canopy of trees than in a crowded city. On June 12, 2017, she checked into Yosemite National Park for a 3-day solo trek, something she'd done dozens of times before. That morning, rangers saw her heading towards the mist trail, camera strapped, journal in her backpack, earbuds in. At 10:16 a.m., her phone pinged near the Vernal Falls viewpoint. That was her last signal. When Emma didn't check in that night, rangers began a search at dawn. They found her tent still packed, her car still parked at the trailhead. The only clue was a single photograph left on her DSLR, taken seconds before her signal vanished. The image showed the trail winding between two cliffs, sun breaking through fog, and something else. In the far corner, behind the trees, a faint outline, human-shaped, but taller, distorted, almost like it was mid-step. Investigators dismissed it as lens flare, maybe another hiker. But in the weeks that followed, 2 more people vanished along the exact same stretch of trail. That's when the Park Service quietly sealed off the north access route. No public explanation, no press release, just closed. And that's where the Ranger's secret file begins. The report surfaced late last year. 43 pages, labeled Internal Incident Log, Restricted Distribution. It wasn't meant for the public or even most rangers. Only a handful of senior officers had access. At first glance, it looks like any other case file. Timestamps, coordinates, weather reports. But on page 3, things start to change. There's a section titled Pattern Correlation, Anomalous Incidents. 23 missing person reports listed side by side. Different parks, different years, but nearly identical circumstances. Each disappearance occurred within 2 miles of a restricted wildlife area. Each involved radio failure, and in every case, the last known location was marked with the same code, Z7. According to Park Service maps, there is no Zone 7. The codes jump from Z6 to Z8, but inside this file, Z7 appears again and again, circled, underlined, sometimes followed by a redacted paragraph marked personnel observation. Who wrote those notes? The signature is blacked out, but the initials, RC, appear throughout, and one line stands out among them. Z7 active as of June 13th. Containment team notified. Civilians unaccounted for. If you cross-reference that date, it's the morning after Emma Hart vanished. This wasn't an isolated case. It was part of something bigger, something the Rangers' file was trying to track, but never meant to explain. When I first saw the Rangers' file, I thought maybe it was coincidence, random vanishings stitched together by paranoia. But once I started cross-referencing the cases myself, that idea fell apart fast. Here's what the numbers actually show. Between 2010 and 2022, 132 hikers disappeared inside national parks under unresolved classifications. Of those, 76 vanished within 2 miles of restricted research or wildlife zones, the same kind labeled in the file as Z7 regions. When you plot those locations on a map, they form clusters: Yellowstone, Yosemite, Olympic, Shenandoah. Each cluster connected by similar elevation, dense tree cover, and, this is the part that gets strange, no recorded wildlife activity during the disappearances. Rangers log bear and mountain lion sightings constantly, but in these regions, the logs go silent. Days before and after each case, nothing. No movement, no tracks. Like the forest itself holds its breath. Then there are the radio logs. In the official transcripts, you'll find fragments of incomplete transmissions, short bursts cut off mid-sentence. Northridge copy, checking on, static. We have eyes on, static. They always end the same way, silence. Now here's the kicker. In at least 7 of those cases, GPS tracking devices failed within a 60-second window of radio loss. Investigators blamed interference, weather, magnetic anomalies. But if that's true, why does it only happen in these zones? The Rangers file includes one photograph attachment labeled Composite, Z7 North. It's blurry, time-stamped just hours after Collins vanished. You can barely make out the outline of a searchlight and what looks like figures moving in formation. Not search teams, too few people, no reflective gear, and they're walking away from the search area. The caption beneath the image reads, "Unauthorized presence, no record." Who were they? Nobody in the Park Service database matches the IDs listed in the log. And when I asked a former ranger about that notation, he went quiet. All he said was, "We were told not to enter Z7 after dark. Ever." So if this file is real and the data checks out, then these disappearances aren't isolated accidents. They're part of a pattern the Park Service either can't explain or doesn't want to. And that's where the theories start. When you look at the data, there are 3 main theories that could explain what's happening inside these parks, and none of them are comforting. The first theory is the simplest, and maybe the most human. Illegal hunting. Deep inside national parks, away from public trails, rangers sometimes stumble across unregistered camps. Hunters poaching elk, bear, even protected species. Armed, territorial, and desperate not to be found. Search and rescue reports mention these camps being cleared quietly, off the record. No charges, no press. One former ranger told Outside Magazine, "You don't want to surprise people out there after dark. Some of them aren't just hunting animals." If that's true, maybe hikers like Emma Hart and Ranger Collins crossed the wrong path. Maybe those unauthorized figures seen in Z7 were more than just shadows. The second theory, environmental danger. The wilderness is unpredictable, and the human brain is wired to underestimate it. Hypothermia can cause disorientation and paradoxical undressing. Infrasound, low-frequency vibrations generated by wind through canyons, can induce panic, confusion, even hallucinations. In 2015, researchers from the University of Leeds found that exposure to sustained infrasound under 20 Hz can alter a person's sense of direction and time perception. Imagine hearing a sound you can't detect consciously, but your body feels it, deep in your chest, and suddenly you can't tell which way the trail goes. That could explain the vanishing tracks, the missing equipment, the sudden radio silence. The forest doesn't need to hunt you if it can make you lose yourself. But then there's the third theory, the one that ties directly back to the ranger's file. It's labeled operational zones, non-disclosed research. These are small, restricted regions used for environmental or wildlife studies, but their exact purposes aren't public. Some whistleblowers claim these zones overlap with federal defense research contracts, testing communication jammers, surveillance drones, or acoustic field devices. In other words, experiments. Ones that might interfere with GPS, radios, even human perception. If that's what Z7 really is, a testing ground disguised as a wildlife zone, then maybe these disappearances weren't random. Maybe they were collateral. 3 theories, all possible, none proven, but each leads to the same unsettling question. Why are the people who know the truth staying silent?
I wanted to know how much of this was real, how much was just online speculation. So I reached out to a few people who actually worked these trails. Not all of them were willing to talk, but one finally did. He asked me not to use his real name, so we'll call him Mike. Retired Ranger, 22 years in the service. Mike. There are places we don't go, not because of animals or terrain, because we're told not to. We log them as wildlife study zones, but nobody's studying anything there. We find footprints that don't match hikers. We hear radio chatter on closed frequencies. Then the logs disappear. When I asked him what kind of chatter he meant, he paused, then said, "Sometimes it sounds like us, like other rangers, but there's nobody scheduled on that channel." Another ranger, this one from Olympic National Park, gave a quote to the Daily Ledger in 2019. He said, "There are entire zones where compasses spin. You lose north, you lose time, and every now and then, we lose people." The article was taken down less than a week later. Even official spokespeople admit, off the record, that the data doesn't line up. Missing person reports are filed, then reclassified months later as lost equipment or duplicate entries. It's a bureaucratic trick. Change the category, and the numbers vanish from public databases. So maybe the truth isn't buried in the woods. Maybe it's buried in the paperwork.
When I compiled every case listed in the Ranger's file, every missing hiker, every vanished staff member, I noticed something the report itself never spelled out. Each disappearance was logged within 24 hours of a Zone 7 activation. That term appeared again and again, always in red ink, always followed by a date. Sometimes those activations lasted a few hours, other times several days. And when a Zone 7 entry closed, the disappearances stopped. So I tried tracing those coordinates. But here's the problem. There's no Zone 7 on any official Park Service map. The digital versions jump from Z6 to Z8. Even Freedom of Information requests come back unavailable, like the zone never existed at all. But when you overlay the Ranger's data on top of topographic satellite images, a faint pattern appears. A perfect circle, roughly 3 miles wide, sitting dead center inside each restricted area. And here's the part that shouldn't be possible. Those circles align across states. From Yosemite to Yellowstone, from Olympic to Shenandoah, each Zone 7 forms part of a larger ring, spaced almost evenly along the 45th parallel. A line that just happens to intersect several decommissioned military testing sites. One note in the file, half redacted, barely legible, reads, Z7 perimeter stable. Field resonance confirmed. Civilian interference, 2 casualties. That line alone changes everything. If these weren't accidents, what were they testing? And then there's this. On the last page of the file, beneath the Ranger's initials RC, the same ones from the Collins case, there's a handwritten line. Containment breach predicted. Z7 expanding. Do not enter after dusk. Whatever Zone 7 is, it's not staying contained. We like to think the wild is something we've mapped, measured, understood, safe inside the borders we drew on paper. But maybe there are parts of the wilderness that don't follow our rules. Maybe what we call a disappearance is just the forest reclaiming its secrets. Or maybe it's something much closer to us. A human hand quietly rewriting the records, moving the boundaries, erasing what doesn't fit the story. Ranger Collins, Emma Hart, the hikers who never made it back to their cars. Their names don't appear in the current public registry anymore. The files were merged, redacted, or simply deleted. So the question isn't just who's hunting hikers, it's who's editing the truth afterward. Maybe it's not about monsters, or conspiracies, or secret experiments. Maybe it's about something simpler. That when we step into the wild, we forget how small we really are. But if that's true, then what did the Ranger mean when he wrote Z7 expanding? And how long before it reaches the rest of us? If you've ever worked in the Park Service, or searched for someone who vanished out there, I want to hear from you. Real stories, real coordinates, even small details that never made the report. Because every time I dig deeper into this file, another name disappears from it. I'm already working on a follow-up, tracing what happened to the Ranger who wrote the Z7 notes. The file just ends 1 page short of his last entry, and that missing page might explain everything. If you want to see what's on it, and what the Park Service did next, subscribe and stay tuned. Because next time, we're not just looking at who's hunting hikers. We're looking at who's covering it up. To be continued. Z7 remains active.